Right, hello everybody. Welcome to the channel again. Many thanks for joining us. In today's hot seat, just so you know who we got with us, we've got Stefan Kovich. I'll give a quick bio about you, Stefan, if you don't mind, and then I'll just mention a little bit about me. So Stefan is a leader in blockchain and iGaming, two exploding markets at the moment. He started working with the internet in the late 90s, worked on a number of startups pre, during, and post-internet boom. He then started working for PokerStars in 2006 and ended up being there for 10 years, over two stints, including years working for bwin Party in between. For the last 3 years, he was a CEO at Funfair Technologies, a decentralized gambling platform built on the Ethereum blockchain. Very cool stuff. And he's now a consultant in the blockchain, gaming, and gambling space. For those who don't know me, I'm Simon Elias, MD of Bluestorm iGaming and Blockchain Talent Solutions in London. If you don't know, again, we're a team of passionate experts in these specific verticals. And to get more knowledge around these amazing spaces, do please click the like and the share button below and click the bell notifications to get more information around this content. So, Stefan and myself were just having a quick catch up about NFTs, and my brain got buzzing again. It's a crazy period to be in. So, Stefan, like I mentioned to you a few weeks back, and we wanted to talk about obviously DeFi and NFTs, two extremely bubbling hot topics, I think it's safe to say at the moment. Would you mind giving us a very quick explanation about the both areas at the moment, and just from your opinion at the moment? It doesn't have to be anything specific, just top line level stuff would be awesome.
Sure. Yeah, so as you say, there's a lot going on. It's very difficult to kind of keep on top of it, but super exciting, I think, for the blockchain space, because after many years we have some use cases, some real world use cases here that are gaining significant traction. So I'm psyched about it, and I think we'll see these two areas grow and grow and grow, along with other use cases developing from blockchain. But in a nutshell, let's start with DeFi. So DeFi is predominantly on the Ethereum blockchain, albeit with some of the congestion issues on Ethereum. We're seeing some seepage over to other chains like Binance Smart Chain. We've got the whole layer 2 that's going to kick off this year on top of Ethereum, which hopefully will resolve some of those issues. But we've also got competing chains who are also looking for DeFi use cases. So that's kind of the background. Now, DeFi itself is decentralized finance. It's been bubbling along for a few years, but really as of last summer, it started going exponential. And the size of the DeFi market is defined as something that's called TVL, or total value locked. And the total value locked, the last time I looked, was something like $40 billion locked in DeFi protocols. And DeFi, decentralized finance, really all it is taking traditional financial instruments and indeed creating new ones that couldn't be created using traditional technology, baking that into a protocol or a smart contract, so that actually there is no middleman. So a good example. sorry, City and Wall Street.
I hear the square mile just cringing as you said that.
I mean, but it does have that sort of profound, or the potential to be that profound, because really, I think when you look at the financial industry, you look at the rise of fintech off the back of the financial crisis in 2008, has nibbled, right, and actually now is collaborating, which is fine with the incumbent, but really has been, in my mind, front end. There's the user experience, putting it on mobile, which is all good because it wasn't very consumer centric. Actually, what DeFi has the potential to do is rewrite the tech stack, the global financial tech stack. And blockchain is perfectly suited for that because it's a means of transferring value in a very efficient way.
Absolutely.
So it's designed for it. And what we're seeing as a kind of concrete example is lending protocols. So I can put cryptocurrency into a lending protocol. seamlessly, just directly from my wallet, in it goes, and I'm earning interest because that cryptocurrency is being lent out. Or I could be staking a pair on a decentralized exchange, something like Uniswap or PancakeSwap on Binance Smart Chain, whereby I'm providing the liquidity for others to exchange from one currency to another. And as a result of that, I'm taking a small percentage, but it becomes quite a big amount of the transaction fee.
Yes.
And again, no middleman, seamless to do. It's open for anybody to do it anywhere on the planet. And we're just seeing a kind of a plethora of new ideas exploding around this DeFi philosophy.
I saw you. Sorry, just on that. Sorry, just to interject. You mentioned on LinkedIn recently, which was really, again, mind blowing. I've been following you for months now, and some of the stuff you put out is insane. Because Visa, you said something about Visa are adopting to something with DeFi, allowing it to open up on their network. Is that right? Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, so I think what we are also seeing at the moment is, the regulators generally, I think, making fairly pragmatic and positive moves to enable incumbents like Visa to get increasingly involved with cryptocurrency. What Visa has recently announced is the first stablecoin transaction via their network, working with a partner.
Okay.
And stable coins, I think, are super interesting because, volatility in cryptocurrency is not for everybody. If you're a trader, fine. But actually, if you want to use it, not so good, right? You want to know the value of your token.
Yeah.
So the US, various kind of regulators in the US have kind of given the green light for the use of stable coins.
Right.
And I think we will see a plethora of other financial payment businesses beginning to use them. On top of that, you've got all the central banks looking at kind of central bank digital currencies. But that's another conversation.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting though, because it's now starting to wake up the institutions to say, actually, we can't run away from this. It's not a fad. It is something that's happening. We've got to work out it's almost joining the dots now, isn't it? How someone like Visa can be a part of this huge network, which before I heard that news, it was like, in my perception, is it's just kept separate. It's like you've got blockchain over here, you've got the institution network over here, the centralized network, and now they're kind of talking about things will start to interlink basically in the future. Is the way I see this as.
I think so. I mean, I think yes, you certainly had and you still have your extreme kind of crypto community, which is very much finger up to the establishment, but that's relatively small group. And then you have a much bigger group, I think, which is a bit more pragmatic, and that includes big businesses. It absolutely includes entrepreneurs, and increasingly you're seeing the two kind of intermix. Talking of which, NFTs is a great example, actually, I think, where that's gone further, because we've seen the likes of the NBA and NBA Top Shots go through the roof. They launched month and a half ago, something like that. Some of the cards are trading for $250,000. That's
just amazing, isn't it?
Which is insane, and does seem to suggest we're going for a bit of a bubble. But underneath it, there's massive transaction volume. It's engaging with hundreds of thousands of basketball fans, and you're getting big franchises now deploying NFTs and using NFT technology.
There's probably a lot of people out there that know what NFTs are. Equally, there's a lot of people that have heard what NFTs are, but have got no idea what it actually is. Would you mind delving a bit into what is an NFT and how did it start?
I can do. Yes, I can do. So
I got you now.
Yeah, you do. You put me on the spot. How do I explain this?
And by the way, Stefan is an expert in this. He knows all of these details at a very granular level. So it's really interesting to hear what he's got to say about this.
Oh, well, thank you for saying so.
100%.
So I think what's interesting is to look at it from you have fungible assets and you have non-fungible assets. Now, they're fancy terms that most people have never heard of, but in simple terms, a fungible asset is something which is interchangeable for another asset and it's divisible. So fiat, a £10 note, I give you a £10 note, you give me a £10 note, Okay, they're different notes, but they're worth the same, right? And we can go to a shop and we can split that into two £5 notes. That's a fungible asset. Most cryptocurrencies are fungible. Bitcoin is fungible. You can buy a whole Bitcoin, you can buy half a Bitcoin, you can buy a Satoshi. Okay, so they are kind of identical and they have the same value. A non-fungible asset is something which is unique. That's all it really is. And so in the real world, a piece of art, a Picasso is something which is non-fungible because there is only one and there will only ever be one. And so Ethereum kind of started this off many years ago, and this industry has been bubbling along for many years, but has really only exploded in the last couple of months. They have a token standard which means that the token is unique. So the smart contract that reflects that token has unique qualities about it. So really, it's just representing something that's unique. And it has many different potential use cases. So art is the big one that everybody talks about. And there's the sale of the Beeple artwork.
I was just about to say, that was insane.
For 68 or 69 million dollars or whatever it was. Absolutely insane.
And that is just that's buying that original one that Beeple made with I think it was a day in his life or something, and he made an image for that period, put it into one digital image, and then someone is displaying that on a visual output like a plasma screen or flat screen, and that's theirs.
Yeah, so I mean it does take a little bit to get your head around, because if I buy a piece of artwork, I have that artwork, I can put it on a wall, right? I mean, whenever I talk to people about crypto art, they're like, "Well, you can't hang it on a wall," and I get it, but actually when you do it, you realize there's something different about the ownership. So, a video piece, which might be freely circulating on YouTube, can become an NFT. And it's kind of what the NBA have done. They've taken specific actions within the game by specific players, and they package them up into kind of collectible cards.
Wow, really? So they're selling off what parts of a video? Parts of a game. They'll play a game, and they'll sell off that segment and that'll be associated to the NFT. NFT.
Yeah, so it'll be LeBron James and his famous dunk against whoever, right? And you can imagine there's a whole series of little 8 to 10 second clips of famous players performing incredible acts within the game itself.
Yeah.
So for fans, it's a bit like trading cards, right?
Yeah.
The old-fashioned collector cards for sports. And
I suppose it is. It's just motion, though, rather than static.
That's all it is. It's bringing it to the modern day. It's motion rather than static. And rather than being a physical thing that you buy in a pack from the newsagent, is a digital thing.
Wow.
But you have ownership of it. And this ownership piece is something that is quite difficult to get your head around. But once you have ownership of it, you're able to actually sell it because it's yours.
And is there only going to be one of those? Or I suppose it's up to the proprietor then if they want to create 50,000 of those clips. But I guess where's that going then? Because I'm trying to get my head around that. So would the NBA say, I guess it comes down to monetization, doesn't it? What are they trying to, if this is a separate platform to monetize and there's huge money there, then actually they can make the rare cards like they used to do on the cards that we used to get at school, wasn't it? Like the football cards, you get the hologram ones. They might make 10,000 of those or 5,000, but at really high cost and make them really rare.
Well, that's exactly right. So it's all about scarcity, right? So if I own an asset and there's a million other assets of its type, it's going to be less valuable, assuming it's desirable in the first place.
Yeah, of course.
Than if I've got one of one. Right. So the NBA have a whole series of different card types based on the amount that are published. So it could be one of one, it could be one of 50, it could be one of 200, it could be one of 5,000, it could be one of an unlimited edition that keeps getting rid. And the price and the value of that item will be affected by its issuance, the total issuance. But at the end of the day, the ownership piece is the bit that makes the difference. So, I mean, there's other examples of this, and there's some great examples within gaming. So kind of blockchain gaming. You have companies like Sandbox. Big fan of this company called Sandbox, and they're creating a metaverse. Right? So you have metaverses in traditional server-based games. Mm-hmm. But within their metaverse, you can buy land, okay? But you can buy that land, and that land you actually own as an NFT.
It's unbelievable. It's almost like the real world is just going to disappear in front of us, and we'll have this NFT world, not NFT world, what did you call it? Sorry,
metaverses. Yeah,
so we'll have a metaverse that we can buy into and actually have that land that can go up in value in years to come, potentially.
And it has done for Sandbox. It's gone up considerably because again, there's scarcity. There's only ever so much of that land, and they're selling that land in auctions over time.
Have you bought any?
So I don't own any land as of yet. I'm tempted. I do own quite a bit of artwork and quite a few bits of kind of collectibles. But the other thing they do is you have in-game currency. So again, you have in-game currencies in traditional gaming, which is perfectly suited for being cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
And then the items that you earn within games, so whether that's swords or powers or access to other levels, again, can be NFTs. So if I earn a sword in a game, I then have the ability to potentially take that item into another game if it's interoperable and use it to play, but I can also sell it. And again, on top of that, within Sandbox, what you can do is you can create assets. So I could build myself a sword. I could build a house for the virtual land, etc.
Well, then sell that.
Bake it into an NFT and sell it. Wow. And if there's a desire for it, people will buy it.
Yeah, of course. I guess there's no change really. We're just talking about a digital landscape here, aren't we? And I guess whatever's applicable in the real world is applicable somewhat in the digital world. So if you're talking about land and stuff like that, I mean, then I start to see a whole planet being created, like, you know, a new universe, which I guess is what you're saying already. But is it a whole planet? Are we then talking countries? Can you create a country then? And can I be the owner of the next like USA or UK or something like that? That's where it gets interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, within Sandbox, it's a universe, but there is a finite supply of land. But there's lots of other projects out there which are kind of deploying similar concepts in terms of kind of land rights.
Sorry, is that like, so eventually, am I thinking on the right terms here? Could that be like a Sim City type environment, but with NFT attached to it to a degree?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And there's lots of Sim City kind of projects out there using that NFT technology, but it gets a bit crazier still. So you can use NFTs, and gaming, as I said, is doing that both as an in-game currency, as an in-item currency, if you like, so you can own the items within the game. You can buy land, virtual land, or again, assets, but you can also then bring in DeFi. So if I buy a piece of land, and let's say it's Farmville, and I want to grow some crops, I buy the crops, and what I'm doing seamlessly is actually the crypto I'm using to buy the crops with goes into a yield earning protocol and is earning me interest. So I'm making money through the game itself.
Wow.
It's and there's other examples of this. There's another great example as a founder I really like called Leighton, who set up something called Pool Together, which is a bit more gambling related actually. And Pool Together positions itself as a no loss lottery. So he's suddenly exploded his protocol, and you can put crypto into a pool, okay, and it's held securely. It's non-custodial, so it's not held by Pool Together, it's held in smart contracts.
Okay.
And the entire amount of crypto that goes into that pool then gets put into an interest-bearing protocol. The combined interest of that pool then gets paid out as a prize on a daily or a weekly basis. Your underlying capital is never at risk, so you're not having to pay for this. It's just redistributing profits off accumulating people's crypto together. And some of these interest-bearing protocols, you know, they're generating 15, 20, 50% APY.
Is this like the Celsius? Because I've been looking at Celsius. I think that's kind of similar to what you're saying there.
Celsius does do this. Yeah, does do kind of compound interest.
So you can put your crypto in there for it to work, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yield off it.
And get yield off it. Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's very early days. It's very pioneering, but it's kind of spawning this genre of what's been known as play to earn gaming. And the way I kind of look at it is
play to earn.
Play to earn.
So I'm just trying to get that digested in my head. Play to earn.
Play to earn. So the way I kind of digest it is to say, well, look, originally the games industry sold CDs, right?
Oh, I know what you're going to say. Yeah.
Physical aspect. They sold those
£40 per disc, for example.
Exactly. And you paid for it, and then you pay for the next version next year, right? And so on. That was a means of monetizing. Then you had the rise of freemium, and generally a shift over to mobile, but you're still ultimately paying because you don't get a lunch for free, right?
Yes.
And they've got all the mechanisms to do that. And now what we're seeing is this rise of play to earn, where it's free to start off with, generally speaking, but you have the ability to create income through the games. Now, whether that is through passive interest baked into the game, assets that you earn or you make, and that you can then go on and sell. But you also have the ability where you have games that are decentralized. They create a governance token. And that governance token enables participants, generally the players of the game, to actually control the protocol and the
development. I love that, really.
So the direction of the game.
They're the government of the game.
Basically.
Wow.
Basically, yeah.
that gets really interesting, then, doesn't it? Well, do you know what's interesting? Because my kids, they play online games that are free, and it seems to be more and more prevalent. The games they are playing are freemium style games, but they want to, like, for example, the biggest one they play at the moment is Roblox, and you buy Robux, dollars in it.
Yeah,
not dollars, but you buy Robux they call them, and then that entitles them to buy new things. And all the time they're coming up to me saying, "Can you authorize this?" I said, "Well, no, of course not. You've got to work for your money." But that's that same idea. And then they're in worlds in there, but they're not. This is not NFT related, no. But I see it how it going in the future though.
Yeah,
and that Roblox has made huge amounts of money. Sorry, I keep calling it Roblox. It's made huge amounts of money because it's a complete free platform to play with multiple games inside the platform, but just buying. And I'm like, I looked at my credit card receipt, and I think last year we ended up spending, it must have been about 260 quid. It doesn't sound much, but then if you work that out, how many, one-off games that you would have bought initially at £40, it's huge.
Yeah.
The increase raise that these guys have got now.
No, and I think what this does is it makes it, fairer, because actually you can participate. You don't have to, you don't have to create assets or sell assets, but you do have that ability as a gamer to suddenly be far more involved because of the ownership aspect of NFTs, but also have the ability to gain from it, right? And to kind of create some income.
I see NFTs, obviously it's exploded now, but you're going to start to see every industry, and we talked upon this before I started recording, that was the recording industry, or the music industry. You look at the music industry and what's happened, even from a young teenager, I've always loved music, and I've followed it all through to MP3 downloads, all the way through to where we are now with Spotify, Mixcloud, all these sort of people, where a lot of the music has lost its value. Whereas you'd go and buy a CD or a record, if you're old enough to remember what a record is. You are, I hope.
I am.
You look good for your age. And it lost its value when it went on to streaming, because you're paying a set money, understandably. But then I notice even my children, they're losing the track of, or they're losing the value of music. I'm using this just an example for NFTs, because they'll go through music really quickly. Like, it's so disposable now, so I feel personally bad for the artist, because the artist isn't getting a fair rep. He's losing money because he's not getting paid as much money. And then when you look at how NFT can kind of, I guess, save that industry to a degree, you know, because what they were doing before as the artists, they were just going off on a growth plateau of just doing live events, because that's the only way for them to make money. And obviously with the situation with COVID, that's hit them massively. So I guess NFTs, you know, it's gonna really assist and catapult industries that have obviously had previous disruption in a negative, but also a positive direction. I almost see it as the second. I've said this before about blockchain generally. I almost see this as in a way, it's a bold statement I'm about to say here, but a savior of the internet to a degree, because it's saving industries to well, for the better, I guess. Do you see what I mean by that?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think what the blockchain kind of community would say is, and it's a little bit fanciful maybe, but there's some truth to it. You know, the original underlying protocols of the internet were never really finished, and the argument is they were never really finished in the sense of being able to truly transact and share value on a peer-to-peer basis.
Yes, 100%.
Right, and that led to the kind of mega corporations that we have, that have grown out of Silicon Valley. They're the biggest corporations that we've ever seen as a civilization, because of the network effects and economies of scale. And you know, blockchain, when it's deployed in its fullest and most decentralized way, kind of takes away that middleman, right? So in some sense, it's pretty threatening to existing business, or it could be. But equally, actually, if engaged with in the right way, and it's still very early, and there's lots of experimentation, there's a whole sliding scale of decentralization, can add significant value, not just to incumbents, right? I mean, I think it can to incumbents, but absolutely empower users, artists, musicians, etc., with another, I guess, channel or another outlet to market. In a very different way.
Power back into their hands, isn't it? And sort of saying, no, we've had a bit of an issue in the last few years, and it's disrupted it in the right way. But I class it as the second layer of the internet, because, well, this is blockchain I'm talking about, because if you look at the likes of the Facebooks, the Googles, you know, I keep reading things about there's going to be new search engines under blockchain that are going to revolutionize things. I mean, it's obviously early days, but it makes you think it's going to put data back in the beholder of the user rather than the centralized Facebooks and the Googles. And that's going to be interesting. You know, what's going to happen with Google then in the future? What's going to happen with Facebook? Because people then go, oh, hold on a minute, I've never been happy giving away my data to these people. And it's getting worse and worse, especially with the WhatsApp updates where they were saying they're going to be able to review data or along the lines of that. That's going to change. You know, I think we're in this very early stage. We're holding a minute. We've got centralized, we've got decentralized. Where does it go? And where's the sort of the bridge between the two?
No, 100% concur. I mean, I think the problem at the moment is with the decentralized stuff, the barriers to entry are too great. And frankly, you know, Facebook and Google and Amazon do a fantastic job when it comes to user experience, right? I mean, it's just so easy these days. But, you know, blockchain is and will catch up in terms of that usability. I have no doubt about that. It's still relatively early days to the point where it's irrelevant, right? I don't need to know what technology I'm using as a user. I just need to know that there's a benefit here, which is greater than, and substantially greater than what I'm using now in order to make me switch, right? And so there's a technology catch-up piece. There's definitely a user experience piece. And there's an education piece, which is all happening. And like I say, I think it's happening probably most prominently at the moment with NFTs, people getting their head around it.
I just say, I bet it happened when Tesla announced about the Bitcoin. Everyone's like, hold on, this is getting serious now. We need to wake up and smell the coffee a little bit here, you know?
Well, that as well, thanks to Elon. Yeah, I mean, I think it's NFTs and it's crypto, right? Those are the two biggest kind of mass market use cases. You know, the increasing number of businesses that are buying Bitcoin as a small percentage, but a percentage nonetheless of their treasury. High net worth individuals, private equity businesses, and just investors putting money increasingly into crypto, and it's all education, right? People understanding how this thing works. Then I think you have the NFT piece, which is a slightly different audience, but there's definitely an investment play within NFTs.
Massively, yeah. Well, these NBA cards, this is just a whole new market happening in front of us, isn't it? But that kind of leads me on, actually, Stefan. Obviously, we're both from iGaming originally. Yep. Where does it go, the NFT arena, within iGaming? And how does blockchain, in a very top level here, fit into iGaming? Because as we both know, iGaming has a good plethora of technology, but at the same time, it interlinks to third-party companies. And just for example, for anyone who is watching and listening to this, people like Playtex, people bolt into people like that. How does the future of iGaming work or along line blockchain? Because it has to, and the same with NFT. A very top line. Obviously, don't want to go into too much detail, but how does that work? Because I haven't seen iGaming move in the right direction, but I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right, and it's a good question, right? I don't proclaim to know necessarily the exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah,
but it will happen. I have no doubt about that. So I'm talking to lots of people in the industry, lots of operators, game developers, affiliates, etc. And I have been with my previous role as well, CEO of Funfair, and I'm noticing a noticeable change now, based on where we were 3 years ago. And I think that's because those industries or those companies that are a bit more forward-looking are now beginning to seriously engage with the idea of looking at deploying blockchain. And what we're not going to see is operators rip up their tech stack and their relationships and suddenly replace it with a blockchain casino. A lot of those kind of first generation blockchain business models, I think, were flawed, as is often the case with a new technology. And now we're beginning to see a second wave of innovation, which is more focused and has product market fit baked into it, or much a much stronger product market fit than what we've seen before. Having said that, to your point, I'm a bit frustrated with the gambling industry for not being more progressive. As I've mentioned on a couple of occasions, I've seen the gaming industry mainly through startups rather than the big game companies, albeit we're seeing some of those franchises now coming onto the blockchain, being far more progressive than gambling. So where do I see it kind of moving? I think, we've seen crypto casinos. Again, cryptocurrencies is one aspect of the blockchain, and businesses like Coin Gaming, run by Tim Heath, massive, big now operators in their own right. We know there's a high crossover between crypto and gamblers and gamers, and as a payment means, it's very efficient. Right, it solves a lot of problems. So I think that we will just continue to see growing. Regulation is the other big thing within gaming that I think makes operators a little bit more wary, right? Because they're heavily regulated and therefore, and often getting beaten around the head by regulators. They don't want to do anything that would jeopardize, their license or their relationship with the regulator. Having said that, I think things like NFTs, NFTs is not a means of payment. It's not, you're not going to be gambling per se with the NFT. It's something completely different. And if you look at the IP that game development companies have in the games themselves, there's an enormous amount of IP that they could distribute as NFTs. So
it's like you said about the lands, you could characters and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, within slots or within, casino-based games, for instance.
Interesting.
But I don't think what you can do is just take a asset, package it up, and sell it. You've got to gamify it. You've got to create scarcity. You've got to create value in those assets. And you can do. Within an NFT, you can have bonuses. So you could have a tradable bonus, or you could have a feature that unlocks content or levels within a game, that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise, that you own, that you could trade. likewise, you could put a sports bet into an NFT, and there are businesses doing this, and you could trade that sports bet, or you could fractionalize that sports bet and have others buy into it.
That's insane. I can't get my head around that. So you have a bet, and I bet on Man United to win against Tottenham next weekend, for example, 2-1, and I sell that bet as an NFT.
Yeah, so typically it would probably work better with a longer term bet, right? And you're taking
they're going to win the cup, sort of thing.
They're going to win the cup. You take the odds today, and the odds might substantially increase or shorten or whatever they will do over that season. And if you've got that bet and you own that bet, you could then sell that bet on at any point.
That's amazing.
I mean,
I can see people going down the pub actually when the pub's open. And, I'll sell this bet to you. And then you go, yeah, go on then, 100 quid. Well, I could win quite a few thousand out of this. Oh God, I'll take the bet on it then. God, I can see this. Some good fun happening down the pub there.
Indeed. So I mean, I think NFTs. Yeah, I'm amazed they're not being explored more.
Yeah.
Maybe they are. Maybe some of the big guys are looking at poker. Is another great example. You could create scarcity in. Well, you could run poker games actually with NFTs if you wanted to, and you'd be able to trade the cards. It wouldn't be a true game of poker, but you could kind of gamify the whole experience.
Yeah. So it's getting people really into that platform, whether it be because the big market we work with a lot of clients at the moment is social gaming. And with social gaming, there's that aspect of leaderboards and people being influenced by the other players to put money down because someone else has been winning or they've had a position increase, should we say, which creates that influence, which could then somehow be tied to an NFT along the way to say, right, you could secure your position or something like that. I don't know. I'm just thinking out the box, but it just makes me think about how big social gaming is now with sportsbook or within the casino, and then how you bring in, like you said about the NFTs. It's the next level, isn't it? Because that's the key for any of these games or platforms, especially in iGaming, is LTV, lifetime value. How can you keep that player in there, and how do you keep them interested? Because I've always looked at casinos, jump in, jump out, and if it's been a good week for me, for example, if I'm a gambler, then I'm more likely to put more money down. But if there's a more of a way of gamifying it, like you clearly said, then actually you're changing that whole casino iGaming perception all over with a new technology.
I think you are. I mean, I think there's also more disruptive ways to look at it, because actually, I collect various bits of kind of artwork that form part of a broader collection. And within that collection, you have a community and you have scarcity. So certain bits are more valuable than other bits. But it's part kind of collectible, it's part art, it's part investment, it's part gamble. Because you don't actually know whether the thing's going to go up or not. And so there's almost a completely different category of gambling, or it has an aspect of gambling that is being created, right? Which isn't just taking existing games and deploying NFTs or DeFi. It's creating something completely different, which does engage with a different audience, a more millennial audience.
I was going to say, what is the age group on this? I mean, I would have said millennial, but I haven't looked at artwork and stuff like that. That's going to catapult into stratosphere with different age groups, surely. And then I guess millennials is your default, I suppose, because they're here now. They get it. They're into it. They're the first breed of that generation. I
mean, I would say it's quite wide actually, the range. But if you're looking at, you've got your high-end artwork, which is probably slightly older. Albeit, having said that, a lot of people have made a lot of money out of crypto from getting in early. But when you look at your MBAs, you look at your big kind of collectible, gamified NFT collections. It's younger. It skews more male. It's really the demographic that operators are trying to fall over themselves to get hold of because they're not interested in traditional casino games.
I can see operators that are watching this are going to be like, okay, right, NFT, quick, pick up the phone to marketing. Right, let's get these NFTs sorted out. The other guy saying, what is an NFT? watch this video. Stefan's the man to go to. Well, I think it's awesome. It's just crazy when, it's happening now. It's happening in front of us. And it almost makes me feel, what's the next industry that's going to be hit with this? It's going to go around everywhere. I mean, there's so many options available to create and to monetize,
Yeah.
For me, I'm very two-dimensional. I'm on iGaming all the time in my brain, but also because we now focus within our agency in recruitment, providing services for blockchain. But particularly, we're really trying to focus on our sort of our heart, where it's at, and that's NFT and DeFi. Are two sort of areas that we're trying to go into, more so.
Yeah. I mean, it's, as you say, it's spreading across many different industries. I'm doing a project at the moment in the fashion industry.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Interesting.
Yeah, super interesting. It's a kind of high-end designer working with an artist and having a beautiful, very high concept short film as the NFT itself. So very exclusive, limited run. And that film and that NFT is paired with a physical item, which again is a limited edition from the designer.
You get me excited about this now. I love it.
So, I mean, and that's just the beginning. There's real world application for NFTs. I know people who are working on fractionalized ownership of properties, for instance.
Yeah. So going back to fashion, because then you have the collections that are coming out then, I guess. So if you say for London Fashion Week, this is our 2022 collection. And then within bits of that will be NFT, to make it really high value, I guess. And this will probably increase value on things going forward because it's traceable. It's got a stamp to it. It's got a link of authenticity linked to it, which will put that value up, I think, going forward.
I mean, so the project I'm working on is the longer term aim is to create something which helps counterfeiting of designer items because of the proof.
Mass market, right? Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
As in counterfeiting is what I'm saying. That's it's one of the probably biggest problems for a designer, I'd imagine. Their bags and brand being counterfeited globally.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. So if you had an NFT which was attached to that, it provides authenticity. You can look at the provenance of items. I mean, diamonds, where have diamonds come from? Are they, ethically sourced? All that sort of stuff. So massive potential. And most industries actually, I would say, are looking at NFTs, or at least the most obvious ones. And you're going to see a lot more exploding onto the scene, in the coming weeks and months.
Well, you heard it here first. Everyone remember Stefan Kovich. Okay, remember this video. You heard it here first. This is what's happening. Stefan, that was amazing. Honestly, it's almost to the point where this stuff is happening in front of us, but it's happening so fast. Normally, things go a little bit slower. Like you got the internet came out, and it was very slow. You had video, then audio, or the other way around, and things took its time. But with blockchain, things are really developing into DeFi, as one vertical, NFT in another, and it just seems to be moving at a very, very rapid pace. And it almost begs to believe, like, what's next? You almost, for me anyway, I like crypto. I'm buying into bits of crypto here and there. Now I'm looking at NFTs, like, okay, well, is this, where do you go? But that's another story. But yeah, mega interesting. That's for another video.
That is another video. Yeah, that's a whole other video. I mean, having been in the space a while, it's, these things have been chugging along, and it's just not been in the headlines. But I still think, we're still this kind of protocol war level in terms of creating fast, cheap blockchains is the next big hurdle to overcome before it really goes mass market. And it's happening, right? I mean, it's absolutely happening. So the guys who, the blockchain that NBA use is called Onflow. Onflow is a new blockchain, only launched a couple of months ago. NBA is their kind of flagship client. It's fast, right? It's cheap.
That's what it's about.
On-ramp, and that's why they've done so well, right? So I think, in the next 2 or 3 years, what you'll find is probably a dozen or so enterprise-ready blockchains, which some will be very specialist, some will be more DeFi, some will be more NFT, some will be more generalist, but they will all have, significant throughput, and they'll be cheap, and there'll be an ability to interoperate between them. And at that point, you remove nearly all of the friction.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why I've put a little bit of cash here and there on Polkadot, and because I do see that was the problem with these chains communicating with one another, or even just having one layer, even Ether and V2. It's the transactional behavior, the speed is still quite slow. And if you're looking at this at scale, to get these volumes of transactions, no matter what sort of application you're running, is difficult. And now what these chains are trying to do is one, like you exactly said, is reduce. And this is what's really got me going. Is I'm like, okay, well, you've got a clear problem, a bottleneck of speed and cost. You can overcome that with interlinking chains. You bring your cost down. You've got that speed there, and the scale is obviously naturally follows. So it's mega interesting. It really is.
It is. Polkadot, I think, is not that's financial advice, but I think is an interesting one to.
Good. Are you backing that for me there? Here you go. High five.
I've got a bit of Polkadot.
There you go.
I am. I've got a bit of Polkadot.
It's good.
I'm still long on Ethereum just because of its developer base. It's
me
massive.
too. That's my primary. Only because I've even got. I should have worn it today. I've got an Ethereum. I wore it when I first met you actually on that crypto curry club, didn't I?
Respect.
Yeah, I'm from a technology background myself, so for me it was all about looking at what's the base platform next to Bitcoin that has something that you can obviously build upon, that people are putting all their hedges on, and that was Ethereum. It seems to be doing its job well. So all good.
It does.
Stefan, thank you ever so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It was really, really mesmerizing. And I hope everyone who watches this is mesmerized. And I think one good thing to kind of end up on, if you don't mind as well, is anyone who's watching that wants to ask any questions. I personally feel it's really good to interact with people, just to kind of get mindset out there. Also to link with like-minded people like ourselves that are really interested in this new wave of technology. Leave comments. Let's have a conversation on this, and pick our brains. And I'm sure if Stefan's up for that, then we can have a little chat on some comments and feedback where we can.
Absolutely, yeah. Feel free if anyone wants to ping me with any questions. Very happy to answer those.
Bless you. Thanks ever so much, Stefan. I really appreciate it, and great to see you again.
Absolutely, pleasure. We'll speak soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks again for coming.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.